Hello, Internet, and welcome to episode number 166 of Mike and Matt's Comic Watchers Show, patent pending. This week, Mike, how the heck are you?
I'm good, man. I'm good. The rain has stopped.
Okay.
We've had a couple days of some dry weather, some sun. Trying to dry my plants out. Home in time before the storm, and they took a swim. But other than that, man, we're good to go.
Good. I'm well. I start my new job on Monday, so totes excited for that.
Yeah.
New chapter, my friend. New chapter.
Yeah.
I will be working for an organization called North Care, and I will be working as what's called a care navigator for individuals that are newly exiting incarceration and they have nowhere to go. I'll be helping them find like immediate housing as quickly as possible, getting them set up with food and bed and plates and all the stuff you need to make your home feel like your home in an effort to help reduce recidivism. So that's the next leg in my social work journey. Totes excited. This week, though, for the Comic Watchers Show, we're doing something completely different, completely brand new. We've never done this before. It's a new semi-regular program, segment, I don't know, whatever we want to call it, Mike, called 6 Rounds. 6 rounds involves alcohol. Yes, it does. We are going to interview one another for 6 rounds. Each round involves one beer or a sip of wine or a half a shot or maybe even a full shot if you want. I don't do shots anymore. Shots wipe me out big time.
I need to stop.
If you want to see me fall asleep like halfway through the show, I'll do shots, but we don't want to do shots. Shots are bad. So we're gonna go a little off key this week. We're gonna go a little off topic. We're gonna eschew our standard comics talk because Mike and I, we've been knowing each other for some years now, and we find out that we are brothers from different mothers, and not just in the comic sense. That's right. We are the world. And we have a lot of musical taste in common as well. So we said the hell with it. We're throwing out the normal script. We are going to tonight's questionnaire for 6 rounds. Our theme is going to be music. So, Mr. Mike, do you want to ask the question first, or do you want to be interviewed first?
Oh, you know what? I'll go first. Yeah, I'll put you on the couch in the hot seat, if you will.
Okay. Oh, you're going to ask me a question first.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, I am starting off with a lovely Hefeweizen from a local brewer called Roughtail, called Polter Weiss. Beautiful stuff. So, okay. Well, I'm going to start drinking. You start asking questions.
Okay. So what? Now here's a big one. Now I'm going for the throat here. What are your top 5 start-off songs from records?
Start-off songs from records. Oh, ooh. Okay.
Yeah.
So, okay. Just like this song, just burn right out of the gate gets the. Okay. Yeah. Off the top of my head, because I got a lot of them. I have a lot of. I feel really strongly about how an album's first track sets the stage for the rest of the album, right? You have to come out of the gate really strong. You have to make a statement. Now, sometimes, unfortunately, the first song winds up being the best song on the album, and we never want that. Right. But it does happen sometimes. So I want to try to stay away from ones like that. But top of my head, first pick, Immigrant Song, Led Zeppelin 3.
Ooh. There you go.
Yeah, you cannot go wrong with Zeppelin.
Oof.
And yeah, Immigrant Song, like 3 is my favorite Zeppelin album.
Really? Okay.
It
okay.
is. A lot of, well, I'm sorry, it's my second favorite after Physical Graffiti, which is kind of like one of the best albums ever made.
All time. All time.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. But after that, I mean, it, you know, a lot of people would be like 1 or 2 or so, but for me, it's 3. Led Zeppelin 3 just really, really added so much texture to what Zeppelin had established that they could already do on their first 2 albums. So for me, Immigrant Song, I mean, it's just an amazing song in its own right. Mm-hmm. But right out of the gate, like they're setting this expectation that they are elevating their game right then and there. Yeah. So moving on, War Pigs, Black Sabbath, Paranoid.
Woo-hoo.
Not only is this just a whomping song from the original definitive heavy metal band. There's few bands out there that can say that they invented an entire genre of music, but Black Sabbath, they absolutely invented heavy metal.
It's like one of the handful of bands, if a handful.
If a handful.
Yeah.
And War Pigs, like, I mean, I've loved that song and that album and that band since high school, and to this day, it's just one of those songs that when it comes on, you just have to turn it up every time and just, you know, and it, perfect intro song. Moving into heavy metal a little bit, one of my other passions, War Ensemble, Slayer, Seasons in the Abyss.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. My God, that's another like pretty much note for note perfect album as far as I'm concerned. And War Ensemble just kicks the door down every single time for me. Moving into,
let me ask you one quick question on that one. On Seasons record, because one of my favorite like metal records.
Absolutely.
Could Spirit in Black open that record?
No.
You don't think so?
Nope.
Interesting. Okay.
It's the middle of the album song.
Wow.
And I don't mean that in a bad way.
Okay. Yeah.
When you're sequencing songs in an album, it's hard for me to describe this without having the music at hand to use as an example.
Sure.
But there's just a certain way that you want your album to flow. And yeah, to me, Spirit in Black is a great middle of the album / end of the beginning album song.
Okay.
Yeah. I love that song. I love that whole album. But okay. Next up, I'm going to move into grunge because grunge is my other favorite subgenre, genre of rock. We got to go with Once on Pearl Jam's debut 10. I mean, that again, you want to talk about a song that just makes a statement for a band right off the rip. Like, it grabs your attention immediately. It's the very sound of a band saying, here, we are here, pay attention to us. Yeah. Right. And Once, you know, Eddie Vedder is just once.
Also, I mean, I think for just a roller coaster of a record that is 10, I think Once is that perfect opening song for that record. You know, kind of like what we were talking about for Seasons. I don't think another song on that record could open it up. I think it has to be Once.
No, I fully agree with you on that. And then, the fifth one. Okay. Tool, Enema, Stinkfist.
Okay. Yeah.
Again, it's a flawless album. It's one of my top 5 albums of all time, of ever. And I mean, Stinkfist, similar to War Pigs or War Ensemble, I mean, you just have to crank it up to 11 anytime that song comes on. It just hits. So that's off the top of my head. No prep time. That's my 5.
Nice.
Okay. All right. I'm going to hit you with a question.
Yes, sir. Go.
Okay. What classic rock era band, so we're talking 60s, 70s era, you know, the quote unquote classic rock era,
Yeah.
do you not connect with? Because I know you're a big classic rock guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which one? Then I say that.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm not saying do you think they're overrated,
Right.
or, you know, but just for one reason or another, this particular band or singer never landed with you on a personal level.
Yeah. Oh, that's easy. Oh,
Okay.
that's
Okay.
easy.
All right.
I catch so much shit for this answer. I'm really in the minority. I don't think I've ever met anyone that shares my opinion on this band, but the Rolling Stones.
Really?
I just don't get it. Like, don't get me wrong. When you hear the hits, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, okay, you know, a couple of toe tappers, but I appreciate, you know, their position and their influence and what they've done and what they've continued to do. But man, I just don't get it. I just even their heyday, I don't get the draw. I don't get Mick Jagger. I just don't get any of it.
It doesn't connect for you.
No, and you know, I really tried. I've from the greatest hits.
Yeah,
my wife listens to the Rolling Stones.
I was gonna say I'm a huge Rolling Stones fan. I'm actually really surprised,
right?
And you don't at least dig on Exile on Main Street.
Yeah, and once again, I can appreciate the record. I can appreciate their stance, but just with I just don't get it. I've listened to all eras of the Stones.
Interesting.
And just can't get into. I just don't get it. Like, I listen to it, and you see all this older footage, and I get that they can still sell out arenas. You know, these guys are like 90, and they're selling out, you know, all these stadiums and stuff, which I think is super dope. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely.
But for the love of me, I just don't get it.
So I want you. I'm gonna give you. You dig on the live aesthetic a lot.
Yeah.
I would like you to check out their Havana Moon album. It's from 2016. It's a recording of a show they played in Cuba.
Hey.
And you wouldn't think a late period live album from the Stones could possibly hit with as much energy as this one does, Mike.
What's it called?
Havana Moon.
Havana Moon, yeah.
It's a double album. This album kicks so much ass. They have a slew of live albums. They probably have as many live albums, Mike, as they do studio albums. And I mean, this one's like one of their best, if not the best, honestly. And I know that's very sacrilegious to some Stones fans out there.
Yeah.
But just saying, try out Havana Moon.
Yeah, I will definitely. Yeah, because like I said, I'm in the minority. Every time everyone's like, oh man, you know, the Exile on Main Street is great. I'm like,
it just doesn't work for you. That's really interesting.
And you could hear the record scratch, you know, and the room goes silent, and then they're like, oh. You know, and then I'm like defending, like, no, listen, I'm not saying they're not good. They're good. I just don't get the draw, you know. I guess in the same way I can understand, like, well, we'll use my wife, for example. She likes the Grateful Dead studio stuff.
Okay.
But she doesn't like the Grateful Dead live because she doesn't like the noodling. She doesn't like the 13-minute extended songs and the jams and, you know, going into one song, then into another, but then coming back to the original song, you know, she's like, wait a second, they've already played it. Why are they coming back to it, you know, an hour and a half?
Because they're freaking geniuses, man.
Well, that's beside the point. We all know the Dead are geniuses, but still. But
yeah, they were high.
But yes, I guess it in the same way, I guess like, when someone says like, oh, I can't, I don't understand, the draw with Van Halen or whatever. And I'm like, whoa, pump the brakes. How can you not, like, what's wrong with Van Halen? You know what I'm saying? And so, I don't know. But yeah, just the Stones never really. What's that?
What?
I'm sorry?
Nibbit? Has a bit?
Man.
Oh, snap.
Man.
Oh, snap.
Oof. Wait.
All right. All right.
Wait a
All
minute.
right. Round 2 begins. Fire away.
Round 2. All right, let's see here. Okay, so what classic record, being a record before you were born, so it could be 80s, 70s, 60s, but whatever record before you were born, that you could go back in time and witness and be a part of?
Oh, ooh. Ooh. That's interesting. I'm going to say, okay, for sheer cultural relevance.
Sure.
Abbey Road, man.
Oh, okay. Very cool. Great
like,
record.
If that's just one of those albums, right?
Yeah.
It just shattered so many norms, and I mean, it's you and I don't have to describe to anybody that it was it's one of the greatest rock albums ever, but it's one of those cultural touchstones.
Oh, easily.
That defined an entire era of music. It redefined what a rock album could be. I mean, I gotta say, Abbey Road. I mean, it was also the last album the Beatles recorded together. Mm-hmm. So there's all kinds of historical significance, like being able to walk down to a record shop and buy Abbey Road like the day it came out or whatever, right? That's just something that cannot possibly be replicated.
No, I mean, for me, I consider it one of the handful of records that I think every household should have at least some type of copy of, be it record, cassette, 8-track, CD, Laserdisc, whatever. Like no household is truly complete without, Abbey Road. I mean, it's like you said, it's phenomenal.
It's one of those albums that if you like rock, you just should have this album. If you have no other Beatles albums or like any other Beatles albums,
it has to
you should have. Everybody should own a fucking copy of Abbey Road.
Yeah, in some form. I mean, bootleg the damn thing for all I give a shit, but own Abbey Road. I mean,
yes.
Yeah, Paul and Ringo have enough. They're fine. They're not going to worry about it. It's
no.
Download LimeWire and download it. It's fine.
That's right. Absolutely. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So all right. Question 2. Get your brewski ready.
Yep. Go.
Okay. Hey, what are you drinking tonight? You didn't share.
Oh, my bad. I am drinking something new. It's called Cryo Stash.
Oh.
Yeah.
Cryo Hops Imperial IPA. Okay. So is it local?
It is not. It is out of Eugene, Oregon.
Really?
Yeah.
They never brewed any beers.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you're gonna drink something, out of state, it might as well be from the Oregonians.
Totally.
They know what they are.
Okay. So you're on record definitively as being like the Neil Young guy.
Yeah.
He's Uncle Neil.
Yeah.
I mean, we both love him.
Yeah.
So I want your opinion though. Which is superior? Neil Young or Neil Young with Crazy Horse?
Neil Young. Neil Young. Yeah.
Oh, that did not go the direction I thought it would.
No. And once again, it's going back to the Rolling Stones. Obviously, I'm not saying Neil Young and Crazy Horse are bad. Quite the opposite. But there's something about Neil solo that you don't get with Crazy Horse. I think
interesting.
Yeah, and taking if you were to take away 80s Neil, not all of it, but if you were to take out, we had this conversation.
Most of it.
If you were to take out half of 80s Neil and then condense it into 1 to 3 records. I mean that discography already stands alone as magnificent as it is.
Mm-hmm.
So if you take that chunk of the 80s out, and now you're talking about a great collection of just emotion, because that's what Neil Young is. Neil Young's an emotion. And he's also a mood. Neil Young is a mood. And
Yeah, I can, yeah.
You don't get that mood. I think Crazy Horse is kind of like what he wouldn't do for himself solo. So he's kind of taken the edgier stuff, the more distorted, experimental stuff over to Crazy Horse.
Yeah.
And we're still getting and we're still getting solo Neil. And what's great about solo Neil is sometimes we're getting, guest appearances and stuff like that. And he's just kind of patchworking a band with just session artists or other friends. And I think Neil alone is more adventurous than Neil and Crazy Horse.
I think, okay, so I definitely, I don't disagree with that, but it's a double-edged sword because sometimes Neil alone makes bad choices. Like the Blue Notes album, or the Rockabilly album, or the
forget the 50s doo-wop.
Yeah. That's the one I was talking about.
Yeah.
And then I mean, there's other times where it's well intended, but it just doesn't land.
Sure.
And look, if you're as prolific as Neil Young, you're gonna have some duds in your discography.
Right. I mean, the guy's been doing it since like the 50s. So I mean, you're gonna
Yeah. So I mean, I don't hold that against him.
Right.
I've never heard a bad Neil album with Crazy Horse.
It's fair. I'll go with that. More
and I always feel like whenever he's it's an album with Crazy Horse, the sound is a lot fuller. Yeah. Because he and those musicians just play off of each other so well. Like Psychedelic Pill, it opens with a 30-minute hippie jam session that should not work for any reason whatsoever, but it does.
Yeah.
Because those musicians, similar to your live Grateful Dead, know how to read one another and play off each other.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm coming from on that.
Right. And that's magical, man, because it's like if you anytime like live, and it doesn't have to necessarily be like a jam band or Neil or something, but anytime a band can just talk to each other musically through their instruments is something great. And I think you definitely see that more with Neil and Crazy Horse than you do with Neil solo, than you will say with Neil solo, because like Neil Young solo is safe Uncle Neil. You know what I'm saying?
You generally you have a fair idea of what you're going to expect.
Right. Like if I was going to introduce someone to Neil Young, I'm not going to sit here and break out a Crazy Horse record and go, oh, hey, I really fawn and fanboy over this guy. So you know what I'm saying? And I think you ease him in, and then kind of, you take, oh, by the way, if you like this library of songs that I've played for you, well, here's a little something more edgy, a little something more experimental, something a little more crazy,
Here's trans.
Right.
The fucking vocoder.
Right. Like Neil Young and Crazy Horse is like a spiked punch bowl at the prom,
Well, my intro to Neil was a best of record. So it had a little bit of solo, a little bit of CSNY. And then, of course, the Crazy Horse stuff. So I got a little bit of a taste for all of it all at once. But solo Neil Young gave us Harvest. So
it doesn't get any better. It almost,
it really, like Harvest, man.
Like,
talk about a perfect album. All right, round 3.
Round 3, sir. My turn?
Yeah, hit me. Bottoms up.
All right, let's see here. A couple different. All right, yeah. Let's Let's ask this one. Do you believe bands, rock bands, we'll take Metallica for example.
Okay.
Do you believe bands can sell out? And if so, what is selling out?
Ooh.
Because I asked this question because I watched.
That's a tough question. So I'll tell you.
Yeah.
18-year-old Matt would have had a really different answer for this.
Right.
It wouldn't have had a lot of nuance.
Right.
And it would have included the words "fuck Metallica."
Yeah,
But,
fucking Bob Rock.
they cut their hair. And, you know, everything we were saying in 97.
Right.
But, which, ironically, 97 was when I saw them in concert. And it was my first concert and I loved it.
Oh, dope.
But, anyway, so I think when it comes to quote unquote selling out,
yeah,
it's really tempting when a band changes their sound to throw that term around. And I'll use Radiohead as the example.
Okay.
Kid A.
Tread softly, sir. Tread softly.
Kid A.
Yeah.
Totally changed their sound, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like they were like,
yeah.
You know, Tom York said, "Screw these guitars. We're going in strange new directions."
Yep.
But he did so with an artistic integrity, right?
Yeah.
He was trying something new. He wanted to expand his own musical horizon, or the band wanted, I should say, to expand their musical horizons. And Kid A is a super divisive record.
Sure.
But it's a good record.
Yeah.
If you can stop being precious about your fandom,
yeah,
and accept the fact that these dudes are trying something new.
Yeah.
And it's not like Kid A was just an embarrassment of riches when it came to radio singles or anything, right? It's not an album that's full of fizzy pop song anthems and shit that's super radio friendly. It's not. It's a challenging album in a lot of different ways. And that turned a lot of people off. And a lot of people were like, they sold out. And I don't buy that because the artistic integrity was there. When it comes to, and the other side of it, intent. If you're deliberately changing your sound to placate the masses, water yourself down to make yourself more accessible and radio friendly and more mainstream, then I mean that's a form of selling out. I actually, as I've gotten older, I can appreciate Load. I think musically speaking, it's a pretty solid album.
Yeah, I've always dug Load. Load isn't, I mean, you could take off a few tracks, but
yeah, definitely.
Overall, I would give it like a strong B minus effort for sure.
But here's the thing. It wasn't just that they changed their sound. Like, they all cut their hair and they made a video where Kirk Hammett looked like some weird gothic mafia hitman, and they were painting their nails, and they were like, "Oh God, don't let them touch me." And all of a sudden, right? Like,
were they speaking with the same
incredibly inauthentic, right? It was really, really obvious what they were trying to do.
Sure.
Was play for the mainstream. So I think for a while, at least, Metallica was going through an identity crisis that absolutely felt like selling out. Although in hindsight, there's just taking the music by itself. There's a lot of good stuff there. Sure. Except for Saint Anger. That is one of the worst albums ever recorded. Sometimes when it comes to quote unquote selling out, if you're trend jumping, that's not good. That's selling out. And I'm going to go to Van Halen because Van Halen went from defining shred guitar and finger tapping and rocking out to keyboards and jump and all of this stuff that had nothing to do with what made the band great. And to me, like I feel like David Lee Roth took that band over and was unabashedly trying to jump on what was popular at the time to make themselves bigger. So, long story short, like that's all a very roundabout way of saying yes, selling out exists, but intent is what defines it more than anything else.
Sure, I get you. Yeah, and I hear you. I mean, 1984 definitely saw a huge switch, but I think with that, and this is a whole other topic, I think 1984, excuse me, is a classic example of kind of catering to the times. Not so much selling out per se, but kind of going with what that trend is,
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying.
Yeah, and I think, well, I mean, in a sense, I think we can kind of pick because even Slayer had that time where if you think about it, what was it? Was it Diabolic?
Diabolus in Musica. That is a very, very unjustly maligned album.
I think if that's the one I'm thinking, let me look that up really quick.
I guarantee you it is.
Because that was like the time where all the new metal and all that stuff.
I don't hear that on that album. I do not get it.
Now, don't get me wrong. I like Diabolus in Music.
I love that album. That was my first Slayer album.
Now, listen to that oh God, what is that song?
Stain of Mind?
Which one?
Stain of Mind?
State of Mind, right. The opening State of Mind was like dun 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 dun. Like when on any Slayer album was there some type of drum groove like that?
But they also had a new drummer.
Well,
I guess it was Paul Bostap's second album, but still.
Right. So I'm saying, like,
I mean, but to me, like that album just sounds like a Slayer album. The sound has changed slightly because yes, it's 1997,
sure,
not 1987, but it still sounds like Slayer to me. Like if you just hold that album and Rain and Blood up, it's like, okay, this is the same band. If you hold up the first Van Halen album with 1984,
it's no contest.
It's totally different. It's like it's literally like two separate bands, or Mastodon.
Well, see, Mastodon, and we talk about this constantly.
Yes.
I feel, and I will absolutely die on this hill. If you listen to Mastodon, and then if you listen to from the first record, from Remission to their latest record, I can't remember what the name is, but we'll say the latest record, you can see a naturally gradual progression of them becoming like, dare I say
Are you talking about the Cold Dark Place EP? Or no, Lush and Grim.
Which one? No. The
Lush
one
and Grim. That's the new one.
Like they're just taking their throne as the new Rush. To me, when I hear, I
mean, don't get me wrong, they're definitely a prog metal band,
right? Like when I hear, like say, Crack of the Sky or Leviathan,
Blood Mountain,
right? I'm hearing the same band, the same sound, but just with better equipment.
I don't know. We'll have to come back to that.
Yeah,
go ahead.
No, I
was just going to say,
no, go ahead.
Honorary 6th best opening song, Blood and Thunder on Leviathan.
Yeah, I'll get that.
But go on. now that we brought up Mastodon.
Right? But I just think that,
Leviathan, man. I can't believe that album's nearly 20 years old.
God, it makes you feel old, right? Such a great record. But I just think, there's that the biggest change I will say is not the sound of the band per se, but it was Brett Hines getting sober.
I didn't know that was a part of the equation.
Right. Now, I'm not saying his playing and his vocals were sloppy while he was, battling his demons.
Yeah.
But you can almost even every record up until I think Crack the Sky was his first record clean.
That's the first one with completely clean vocals.
Right. That's the first record where Brand, the drummer, started singing, which to me completely took Mastodon and broke him out as like.
Well, Crack the Sky is insane.
Oh my God. There's not a bad track on that record.
No. Well, I mean, it's a really strong continuation of Blood Mountain.
But a cleaner Blood Mountain.
Yeah.
Cleaner recorded Blood Mountain.
Yeah. And it concluded their Elements quadrilogy really, really well.
And if you want a trip, if you listen to the instrumental version of Crack the Sky, that's a whole separate record.
Really?
Yeah, that's
I didn't even know that was a thing.
I think, well, when they re-released it, I think it was like a bonus. They did like a digipack to see like back in the day. And now you can, like, when you buy it, I think you get the deluxe edition. I think most editions now come with the regular Crack the Sky and the instrumental version of Crack the Sky.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I didn't even know that was a thing.
Oh my God. It's so good. When you now don't get me wrong, the vocals are fine, but just hearing, just the drum, it's almost like it's a conversation that just it's like a never-ending story of a conversation, and you just
got you
play it on a loop and you're good to go.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I'm gonna go band specific with this question.
Yes, sir.
All right. System of a Down.
Okay, good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Are they an actual good band with a lot of multi-layers and nuance, or are they a one album wonder with toxicity and none of their other work lives up to what that album promised?
I think they are a executive's dream.
Explain.
A record executive's dream, meaning that everything from Steal This Record, Toxicity.
That's B-side, so that's not quite a studio album.
God, that's my favorite stuff from them. So we'll say Toxicity and everything pre-Toxicity up until Toxicity. They were the record executive's newest Rage Against the Machine, right? Now, not saying that's a bad thing. However, if you could take an edgy band that's moldable, right? That you can sing your protest songs and you can have your causes and stuff. However, they have to be in a little box and they have to be marketable. Just like
interesting. Okay.
So now they were like, well, we found our new Rage Against the Machine. However, now we got this new metal wave coming in, right? So now that you got bands like around that time, Linkin Park, Cold Chamber, System, I think Stained was in that part, right?
Yeah.
So you had this new wave, and now you got this edgy band, and we got the Iraq invasion, and we got 9/11. So yes, we'll take your protest songs, and yes, we'll take your edgy records, and yes, we'll take your edgy lyrics, because that puts you on MTV when they were still showing videos. And now you want to right. But now you want to do a video that kind of gets you arrested with, and now we got to put Michael Moore. So when you do another video,
so what you're saying is, hold on. What you're saying is System of a Down is the Michael Moore of early 2000s rock.
Kind of, sort of. But I don't say that because I really do like System of a Down.
I do too.
Their problem I think their problem was they were just a victim of the moment. I think they're a good band. I think their causes are true. I think their lyrics. I think Serge is a great lyricist. He's
I
great
think
voice.
Serge is actually a terrible lyricist.
Oh
But
wow, my okay.
yeah, his lyrics. So his lyrics tend to be yelling slogans more than anything else.
I think there's a little bit of rap in there.
And it's good. I mean, like it goes well with the sort of with the I don't want to say simplistic because that's not the right word, but the style of music that the way that they convey their message, their music, right?
Right.
It goes really really well with. But by the time you get to solo Surge after System broke up, and his choruses are just like him screaming the same lyric over and over and over and over, you start to realize like he doesn't actually have a lot to say.
Well,
He's got ideas that he's wanting to convey, but he doesn't know how to convey them, so he's just shouting slogans. Now, I say that again, I like System.
Yeah.
I like their first album. It's weird. They're obviously still a work in progress at that point.
Yeah.
They're still finding themselves. I think Toxicity is a freaking great album. It's one of the best rock albums of the 2000s. And the weirdo albums after that have their moments.
Well, that first record, because it was a 2 record, they Hypnotize,
and what?
something Matize.
Something Matize, yeah.
Something Matize. Well, anyway,
Mesmerize and Hypnotize.
Right. So Mesmerize, the first record, was actually pretty dope. The second record is absolutely trash and unlistenable.
I don't know if I agree with that.
Really?
They both have their ups and downs, and that's kind of the problem. Is those 2 albums are obviously intended to be a double album, but for whatever reason, the label didn't let them do a double album. I don't know why, but I guess yes, I do. There's more money to be made off of 2 single albums, but there's obvious division in the band members as to what direction the band should take. And that really becomes evident afterwards when you see the direction that Surge goes in, and it more or less lines up with the System sound.
Yeah.
And then you hear Scars on Broadway, and it's terrible. I can't even remember the name of the other guy.
Oh, the guitarist?
Yeah, the other singer.
Oh,
but yeah, he sings like this a lot of the time.
Yeah, well, Shavo, the bassist, sings backup. He's the more like the yeller dude.
Yeah, that's him. God, his voice is
Aaron Malakian is your
Aaron Malakian. I knew that was it was on the tip of my tongue. But yeah, when you hear his stuff, it's a lot more in line with the weird, shitty tracks on Mesmerize and Hypnotize, like the one about the baseball game where Tony Danza apparently cut in line. Right?
That's so ridiculous.
And I mean, when you hear those 2 things separate from one another, you can tell, okay, there's 2 very differently competing ethos in System of a Down, and that's why they broke up.
Yeah.
And I just think they hit this lightning in a bottle moment with Toxicity, and they were never going to duplicate it again. And
absolutely.
They're clearly talented musicians, but they're also clearly people that have just different ideas as to what they want to do, and that's fine. It happens.
I think. Well, it's like our conversation we had the other night. We were talking about Arcade Fire and Neon Bible, and we were talking about how Arcade Fire. I love Arcade Fire. I'm nothing taken.
Yeah, no, I love them too. Right. I am not feeling this new album.
I'm half and half still, but how we talked about how they essentially, and pardon the expression, blew their load for Neon Bible. I think Toxicity is that record, and I
I
started
think it
thinking
is,
about
but the aftermath is really different because Arcade Fire, I think, made a conscious effort to not duplicate Neon Bible, and they've been like the follow up, the suburbs to Neon Bible.
yeah.
It's basically like, okay, let's take Neon Bible and strip it down to its bare essentials,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
And it works. It's not as good as Neon Bible, but it works in its own way. And
Yeah.
like then you have Reflector and the album after that, whatever it's called, and then you have this new one, and they're all kind of trying different things, but it's all fits a pattern of them deliberately trying not to repeat themselves. And I respect the hell out of that.
Mhm.
Like a lot of bands, lesser bands, would have been like, oh, okay, let's just keep doing this. Album was huge for us. Let's just keep doing that.
Right.
And we
Regurgitating.
found our niche.
Right.
And they didn't do that.
Right.
System of a Down imploded
They really did.
rather than try
Yeah.
different things. Like they just could not get on the same page again.
Yeah,
And I mean, it
think,
happens.
and the thing is, if System of a Down was on like an independent small label,
Mhm.
like somewhere out in Minnesota, they would have put out one record and would have broken up
Yeah.
because they couldn't get along. And then apparently now their drummer is like some like super like MAGA dude, and I'm like, wait a second,
Oh,
yeah,
really?
yeah, and I'm
Oh, I did hear about that. That's literally the worst thing
like,
ever.
how does that work? But I guess, I mean, if you're able to, I mean, I guess if you got like $1 million in this hand, you can play with your ultra liberal band in this hand, and then like maybe put your MAGA card in your back pocket for an hour. You know, I guess, I don't know. I'm not in his.
I don't know. I just think that's really shitty. Okay. We need to get into round 4 because we're at the 45-minute mark.
Yeah, we're fine. We're good.
We're good, but we're not. Are we good?
We're getting there. All right.
All right, round 4. Bottoms up.
Yes. What? Just kind of like a two-parter, if you will.
Okay.
What has let me, how do I want to say this? What was your best concert in an arena, like an arena, big setting type deal, Coliseum, whatever you got over there?
Okay.
And what has been your best small club venue bar show?
Okay. Well, I don't know how we quite want to define small venue.
I will say
I want to start there.
less than 2,000.
Less than easy. Eddie Vedder.
Oh my, okay. God, you saw the
2013. He
wow.
played in Tulsa, which is about an hour and a half up the turnpike from me.
Yeah.
I don't even remember the name of the venue, but it was just him. I would say the venue was held probably less than 1,000.
Okay.
Yeah, that feels right. And I mean, it was just this perfect balance of just enough and an intimate setting. And I mean, he played his solo stuff, he played covers, he played Pearl Jam songs, and it was legit just him the whole time. No backup band.
What?
Yes.
Once in a lifetime.
Absolutely, unequivocally, my favorite concert of all time.
Oh, that's amazing.
So I always whip this story out because it's just such a great Eddie Vedder moment. He's sitting on stage and he pulls a cigarette out at one point between songs. He starts to light it and he looks up at the wall. It was clearly rehearsed, but still, I don't care. He looks up and he sees a no smoking sign up on the wall. And he just kind of looks at it for a second. And he just goes, shrugs his shoulders and lights up anyway. And it was such a wonderful show, man. Oh my God. It was divine. Like, there was because of the size of the venue, it was perfect for feeding that audience to performer connection.
Okay.
And yeah, just, oh man, I get chills just thinking about it. Okay.
Yeah.
Big venue.
Yeah, big venue.
Tool, 1997.
Ooh.
They were touring for Enema. And
Yeah.
here I am. I'm a wee lad of merely 17.
Yeah.
And I was there with my bestest friends.
Mhm.
And the show's like, okay, it was typical kind of big arena where you've got a big GA section on the floor and then seating. And we had GA tickets and it was shoulder to shoulder. So we get there first and early before everything starts up, and we're trying to push our way to the front. And there was this there was this girl that we were friends with at the time named Ashley, and she wanted a guy to move, so she like kind of punched him in the back.
Why?
And she moved, and when the dude turns around, he looked at our friend Devore, thinking he had done it, and Devore's like, ah, because he's only 15 at the time.
Right.
And this dude was big, and so he's like about to piss his pants, and our friend Luke, who even at the age of 14, no, Luke was 13 at that time. Oh my god.
Holy cow.
Yeah, even at the age of 13 could easily have bought cigarettes for the rest of us. And
nice. Okay.
Every
group of friends needs at least one of those in your teenage years.
I could tell you stories.
Right.
But anyway, he steps to the guy, and the dude like immediately shrinks away. So the Melvins were the opening act. It was my first time to see the Melvins.
What?
Yeah.
Melvins opening up.
Come on. Well, I've seen the Melvins 5 times, and this was easily the worst performance by them. They were not comfortable playing in front of a huge audience like that, and it showed. And the audience, a lot of members of the audience were hostile. Like, this was 1997. Enema had just come out the year before.
Yeah.
There was a lot of, like, Fairweather fans. And those are the assholes in their Tommy Hilfiger shirts out there that were like, you suck, man, because they didn't get it.
Yeah.
So, anyway, the Melvins played, and it was cool. And I got a Melvin shirt that I still have to this day.
Oh, that's dope.
And I've kept it specifically because I wore it the day my son was born in 2000. Never gotten rid of it, and I never will. So anyway, Tool comes on, right? And the lights go out, and I swear to God, it was like an atom bomb of weed just goes off in that place. I mean, it was ridiculous. And that whole GA section just starts moving. It was not just one pit at the front. The entire floor area, Mike, was just, it was nuts. People, I shit you not, people were getting taken out of that concert in stretchers.
At Tool and Melvins?
Yes.
What?
It was because so many people were getting smushed in front of that wave of people. And I mean, honestly, it was a little bit of a bellwether for what would eventually happen tragically at that Travis Scott concert last year. But yeah, at the time it was like, holy shit, man, these guys are getting taken out on stretchers. Whoa, but no, it's not okay. But anyway, in terms of a big venue, like they played so well. And I mean, Enema is one of my like top 5 favorite albums ever. Sure. And this is the show for that. And my God, it was just amazing. So
amazing.
That was my small venue, large venue.
Yeah.
Sidebar.
Oh,
about 6 years ago, I'll make it brief. I saw the Melvins for the 5th and most recent time.
Okay.
And it was some little hole in the wall venue in Norman, Oklahoma, where OU is, just right outside of Oklahoma City suburb. Couldn't have been more than 100 people in there. And they were so in their element. It was perfect. Just chef's kiss.
Yeah, that's what when I was.
That's one of the things I love about the Melvins is not only have they continued to just do what they do since 1983, almost 40 years now.
Yes.
They flirted with the mainstream. They hated it. They walked away. They intentionally made a shitty album to get out of a contract they hated.
They did.
And they've just soldiered on and done exactly what they want to do. And respect, man. Like, how
I
do you
love
not
it.
love the Melvins?
And-
How do you not love them?
No, and when I was stationed in San Diego, when I wasn't deployed, and I actually was in San Diego, the only concert I actually made I made 2 shows in San Diego. One was the Melvins, and one was Madball. And I
Never
saw
heard of them.
Oh, Madball? Oh, good stuff.
Sounds like an aggro band.
No, they're hardcore. They're like Gnostic Front type
So,
stuff.
so they're like Hatebreed?
Better than Hatebreed. They're
Okay.
they're not as like gym lifting bro music. But no, to add. So I saw the Melvins at a place called the Soda Bar in San Diego, and maybe 100 people. I mean, it was like a room. It was like a bedroom, and this club was like, "Hey, we're gonna become world famous and just put a stage in a bedroom and serve alcohol, and like everyone from like Nirvana to Agnostic Front is gonna play here."
Right.
And so we were going to be in for a few months, and I bought Melvin's tickets, and the wife was like, "Yeah, sure, yeah, go do it. You're barely here, yeah." And so this was my 3rd time seeing the Melvins, and this was say like 2014, 2015, and it was about 100 people, give or take a few, but it's like you said.
Who opened for them?
Was
it La Butcherettes by chance?
I don't remember an opening act.
Okay, because you said 2014, 2015. That's the same. That almost had to have been the same tour I saw them on that last time.
When they were with La Butcherettes and stuff.
Yeah.
But I know
you also put on an amazing show.
Yeah. But no, I don't think anyone opened up for the Melvins. But anyway, real quick.
Yeah.
It goes back to what you said. It was maybe 100. If it was 200 people, it's too many. But everybody was just, if you fell down, they picked you up. If you were trying to get around because the bar was in the back of the venue, and regardless of where you were, you had to go through people. So you were handing money to some dude who was going to hand it to the bartender, who was then going to pass you your drink. And
That's what's up.
Yeah. And so when you go to shows like that, and
I love those shows.
Yeah. And so it's like, I swear the Melvins love like the best times of all the times I've seen the Melvins, the best have always been in these small, dank.
They are in their element.
Oh my God.
They
the less people
on that shit.
Right. And that's why I'm so stoked to see Melvins this June in Richmond with Helms and Lee. But yeah, the Melvins, I mean, the smaller the venue, man.
Yeah.
I mean,
absolutely.
Brilliant.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
What is the worst show you've ever seen?
Oh, well, ironically, it was worst show. Oh God, that's a tough one. You know what? I gotta say, and this is a weird one. I knew this was going to be a weird show, so I'm not surprised. So, here in Norfolk, Virginia, we got a pretty famous place, a pretty famous club called the Norva. That a lot of bands, we get the national bands, get the local bands, shit like that. So anyway, years ago, we'll say this was like 2010, 2011. I mean, this was a while ago. I bought tickets to see Mudvayne. Yeah, I'm a huge Mudvayne fan.
Really?
And I don't know why. I caught on to them late.
I would not have expected that.
Yeah, man.
To me, and maybe I'm wrong, but to me, they've always struck me as Slipknot ripoffs.
Well, I thought when I first saw that, and I'm not a huge Slipknot fan. Like I'll make like a whole CD out of songs from Slipknot.
Yeah.
And so when I saw Mudvayne, when they first came out with the face paint and Dig and all that stuff, I was like, all right, whatever, because like Mushroom Head and all that other shit was coming out. And it wasn't until what's their second record? Oh god. Either way, it was like their second or third record.
Okay.
Excuse me. It came out and I heard a song on the radio. I was stuck in traffic type of deal. And I was like, this is Mudvayne. Okay, there's a little groove there. And so I just kind of, started checking out songs and I'm like, interesting. Okay, yeah, they're kind of dope. Years later, they come to the Norva. I'm like, dude, I'm gonna go check out Mudvayne, right?
Sure.
Yeah, it's a 1,400 seater club, standing room only. Why not? It's kind of dope. And so they didn't have a opening act. Opening act was like to be determined. They were still. It was like one of those times where like here's our tour, and here are all the dates, and opening acts will be announced at a later time. So I end up having tickets before the opening act was announced. And as I get the tickets and the opening acts were announced, it was Life of Agony. So as a huge Life of Agony fan, right?
Okay.
Huge Life of Agony fan. I'm like, I finally can get to see Life of Agony, right? So this is like a band from like
they opened for Metallica on the Load tour.
Yeah. And
they were at that first show that I saw Metallica at.
Yeah.
My first concert. Yeah.
Did they get booed off the stage? Because they got.
I don't think that they didn't get booed off the stage, but they got a very chilly reception.
Yeah. And so I'm sitting here like, dude, like I'm finally getting to see my band, right? Life of Agony open up for Mudvayne and like a little club venue. It's going to be super dope. And like, I don't know because this was pre, and let me not be insensitive because I cannot remember her name. I think it's because the lead singer Mina. So Mina transitioned from Keith Caputo.
Okay, good for her.
Yes. So this was right before, and this maybe had something to do with it because they have a great documentary. I think it's on Amazon Prime about Life of Agony, and it really highlights Mina's transition, right? Cool. And everything she was going through from birth. And I mean, it's really a great documentary. It's actually probably one of the better documentaries of bands that I've seen.
Okay.
So anyway,
good to know.
What's that?
I said, no, good to know. I had no idea about any of that. That's really cool.
So, as a huge Life Agony fan, they come on and they were just off key, and it was just a really bad performance, right? And I'm sitting here like the inner teenager in me is going like, no, like don't fall apart on stage, right? Like,
yeah, right.
And then then the crowd gets into the boo, like get the fuck off the stage. And then they start chanting Mudvayne, and I'm going like, no, this is not how it's supposed to go when I finally get to see Life of Agony, right? And so, so then Keith, just kind of just says, hey, thanks for having us. Like mid-song, he just stops singing.
Really?
Says, hey, Norfolk, thanks for having us. Maybe next time, and then walks off. And then like Joey, like the guitarist, and everyone else is like, they're like looking around, like
they're like, what the fuck?
Like, yeah, like what the fuck, right? And everyone's like, boo, and they started like, they didn't like really, they were like empty cups and like shit like that at the stage.
Really?
Yeah. And so
that sucks.
And so like I'm like, oh, like no, not like this, not like this. So I think that was been my lamest, my worst concert experience. And it's both like on an emotional level, not really emotional, but I guess like you were
just kind of crushed because you were hoping to get to see one of your favorite bands. And
yeah, because as a teenager, like their first two records, man, Ugly and River Runs Red were huge, man. I mean, those two records are still huge. I'm 43 and I still lean on those two records. You know, as drive time, or if I'm, you know, if my anxiety is kind of up, or the depression comes to town and wants to hang out for a few days. Those their first two records. I mean, this is part of our talks in our chat. You know how important the Pearl Jam's Vitology record is to me. Um, those first two records of Life of Agony are equally as important with those songs and what those songs talk about.
Mm-hmm.
And so seeing this band that I've been just bleeding to see since I was a teenager, and I was probably early 30s,
Yeah.
probably,
I get it.
and I'm like, oh, it was such a letdown, so, but thankfully, I mean, when Mudvayne came on, it was,
They kind of
yeah, I mean,
resuscitated the experience for you.
yeah, such a dope set for Mudvayne and stuff
That's
like
good.
that to kind of save the night. But yeah, definitely, if I had a worst concert experience, it would be just kind of seeing Life of Agony just kind of fall apart on stage, and but then kind of seeing this documentary, and when Mina was transitioning from Keith, you're kind of like, well, damn, that's when you kind of saw them, when they were, when she was having her,
she was going through all this.
Yeah. So
no wonder she didn't have the emotional capacity to,
right,
or psychological capacity to deal with this.
Right, and a lot of Life of Agony songs are very, very, emotional. They deal with a lot of sensitive topics for a lot of people, and shit like that. So, yeah, that was a rough show, man. That was a rough show.
Well, that definitely. I'll keep it brief, but I think that definitely beats my worst show experience, which was unfortunately Neurosis in '99. I love Neurosis. A fantastically talented band.
Not Neurosis.
And they were coming off of Times of Grace. That's what they were touring for, and that's got some of their best songs on it.
Yeah.
And I was so about them at the time, and I had a friend who had unfortunately passed away in a car wreck very shortly before I saw that show, like less than 2 months. And one of the songs on that album, Times of Grace, just really struck a chord with me at the time and resonated with me and just kind of emotionally helped me get through it. And so I was really psyched to see them. And they get up there and they just literally stood there, did not interact with the crowd once, and played the songs that they played exactly as they appeared on the album, and then they left. That's it. And then I met the guitarist briefly after the show, and I was trying to express to him how much this particular song resonated with me and why. And he was like, "Oh yeah, man, thanks. I appreciate that." And that was it.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, fuck these guys. Yeah, like that personal aspect of it aside, just the fact that they stood there and did nothing. They didn't try to interact with the crowd or anything. They just stood there and played the songs and did literally nothing else. It was not a good show.
Yeah.
So, that's my worst. So, okay, we're on round 5. Bottoms up. Hit me.
All right. So these last two, I'm going deep.
We're in our cup. We're in our cups now, as they say. They probably don't say in England.
All right. So I'm going deep here.
Okay.
These next two questions, 5 and 6, they're huge.
Ooh.
Deep. All right. So Cliff Burton and Kurt Cobain are still alive.
Oh, shit. You just hit me right in my heart.
Which one has the bigger impact to their band if they're still living?
Cliff Burton.
Yeah?
Yes. And I'm going to say that based upon, I read there was an interview multiple years ago now, maybe 2014, 20th anniversary of Cobain's death.
Mm-hmm.
I think I read it in Rolling Stone, and it was an interview that was done with Chris Novoselic and Dave Grohl, and Pat Smear, I think, was there. And they all sort of conveyed the same idea that, Kurt Cobain, very, very discontent with being famous.
Yeah.
Dave Grohl said, as in the interview, I think we would have gotten one more Nirvana album and then broken up, and then he probably would have faded from the spotlight and been like a producer or something. It's okay. I can dig that. But Cliff Burton, man, look, I love Justice.
Yeah.
I love the Black Album. I like Load. I tolerate Reload. I tolerate the other two albums after. That's exaggerating. I like the most recent two albums.
Yeah.
But there's something to be said about Metallica's first three albums with Cliff Burton.
Oh, right? Absolutely.
He was the big brother of the band, even though he was only a couple years older than the other guys. And he was such an innovator. Like, it's interesting that you bring Burton up, because Pulling Teeth came up on my absolutely, on my rotation earlier, on my shuffle earlier of my songs. And I was just listening to it, and I was like, God, this dude is playing a bass like it's a lead guitar.
Mm-hmm.
And he's clearly, when you listen to Puppets, and he's clearly playing on a different level than anybody else at the time, right? He is classically informed and taking Metallica in strange new directions. Like, there's not strange, but unprecedented is the better word for it. And there's no doubt in my mind that had Cliff Burton not died, Metallica would have been an incredibly different band.
Sure.
I don't think they ever would have made the Black Album. I just don't. I think they would have gradually moved into more prog metal territory.
Now,
so from that perspective, I think Cliff Burton has the bigger impact had he lived.
Mm-hmm.
Because Metallica looks really different. And as influential as Metallica is, and a lot of people want to hate on them and want to deny that, but screw those people. They're just talking shit to sound important.
Mm-hmm.
If Cliff Burton hadn't died and Metallica had continued with him, I honestly think heavy metal looks different in general.
Oh, easily.
So that's my answer. So, okay.
Yep.
You're up. So,
yeah,
I'm going to throw one of your questions back. No, I'm not. I was going to throw back at you the old question, but where do you stand on listening to the blues? Because let me give a little context for this question.
Yeah.
Because you don't get rock and roll without the blues.
Right.
So for me, like, I've been listening to grunge and alternative and heavy metal, and then all of a sudden I'm introduced to blues, and I'm introduced to it in a context in my 22, 23, early 20s, where I'm at just this wonderful stage of my life where I'm open to hearing new things. And this my friend, my dearest friend in the world, he's like, man, you got to check out this BB King guy. Okay, let's listen to it. And from there, like, this whole new frontier of rock, and frankly, this whole new appreciation of the roots of
Mhm.
rock music comes into my own musical vocabulary. So I'm just kind of curious where you land when it comes to the blues.
Hold that thought really quick.
Oh, okay.
Hold that thought really quick.
So I know that for me, like when I am listening to the blues or anything, of that, I can listen to the Allman Brothers or Led Zeppelin or anything like that. And it's like I can feel that historic connection. Now, I know a lot of people, and at least people younger than me, maybe, or maybe even my age or a little older, maybe don't get that because, as we age, the blues becomes a thing further and further into the past. So, B.B. King, Howlin' Wolf, Muddy Waters, Buddy Guy, these just kind of become these old names that we don't necessarily attribute to whatever's hip and cool now. And I just dated myself by saying hip and probably cool. But, if push comes to shove and you say, you can either choose between this clutch of blues albums or these rock albums that came out in the last 20 years or so, and they're all certifiable classics for one reason or another. I'm going to come out and say, oh, let me have the blues. So when it comes to the blues, it necessarily speaks to the Black music experience in America, which is obviously something that I cannot personally speak to. But at the same time, it's important. There's historical importance to Black men and women in America staking out their own claim to musicianship. So, Mike,
Yeah.
having said that,
Yeah.
where do you come in? Where do you land when it comes to the blues?
The blues, I think, I mean, and I'm almost kind of ashamed to say this, that I didn't really catch on the blues until late, like in my 30s type late. Um, always hearing like bands like Widespread Panic and Fish, jam band stuff. You always covering like Junior Kimbrough stuff, and and then you listen to like the Black Keys, and
Right. The rock translation
right,
of the blues.
right, and then
That's obviously inheriting that legacy.
right, and so for
The
me,
Allman Brothers.
I'm always kind of looking for an in for blues,
Mhm.
Like, for me, me and that genre are still kind of learning each other. You
Okay.
know? I absolutely, there is something relaxing about the blues. There's something that kind of just puts you in your element of the blues. And it's fun because I really started to kind of get into it more when I lived in Chicago for a few years, obviously, right? But
Nah, Bears.
right, yeah, if you like football. But no, I think the blues has its place. I think the blues, for me, the blues, I need more of it.
Hmm.
But at the same time, it's kind of like, for me, the blues, I need it in batches. I
Okay.
For me, like I remember as a kid and growing up in Virginia and Florida, like Stevie Ray Vaughan was really huge, and I remember seeing him on TV and stuff, and they were talking about Stevie Ray Vaughan this and Stevie Ray Vaughan that,
Oh
and
yeah, absolutely.
right, and so listening to him, and as a kid, it was just music. You're not
Right, right. You're a kid. You don't know any better.
right. You're not going to go like, wow, his tone is really on point in this
He
record.
really knows how to work that wah-wah pedal.
Right, yeah. Like 8-year-old me is not going, God, I need more Stevie Ray Vaughan records. But at the same time, like blues for me is kind of got it. I guess it's so weird because like it wasn't until like listening to stuff like from Dan Auerbach and the Black Keys and stuff that I really started to kind of weave in and out, because up until Dan Auerbach when he did his solo stuff and the Black Keys, if it wasn't if I didn't see like Widespread Panic cover a Junior Kimbrough song or something like that, I was just like, well, the blues is the blue. Okay, the blue. Okay, whatever.
Right.
And
it's
so,
kind of like this whole other thing,
right? And it's like a genre that I want to make sure that I'm respectful of it at the same time, and
absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? Because the blues, I mean, it's without the blues, there's no music. I mean,
no rock. Period.
There's nothing. I mean, and so it's one of those genres.
There's no R&B.
Yeah, there's no Elvis. There's no nothing.
Right. There's no rockabilly. There's no soul. There's no funk. Hell, there's no hip hop when you come right down to it. If you really want to trace it down, like the blues is so elemental to so many different genres.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where it's like I like the blues, but I know I need it in batches. And when I say the blues, I mean like stuff like Junior Kimbrough and Stevie Ray Vaughan, Muddy Waters, stuff like that. BB King. I need the blues in batches. I can't take it like all in at once, because
there's so much there, right?
And I don't know
that rock guys, right?
Right.
Like, you got to remember the British invasion in the early 60s was prefaced on bands like the Rolling Stones, like Cream, or / the Yardbirds, like the Who, covering and anglifying, so to speak, the blues as they heard it from the 40s and 50s. And these guys had grown up on it post World War II. So that was kind of like a lot of suburban American white kids' introduction to the blues. So for us, if we're working backwards from there, the logical transition is the players and the musicians that were working in what was the Chicago style of blues, so to speak, because you were in Chicago, playing with electric guitars. Like Chicago blues introduced electronic guitars to the form. Everything prior to that was done acoustically, and generally it was just one person playing, like Blind Lemon or a host of other folk. So you have to keep working backwards from there. And like, I love BB King. BB King is absolutely my favorite blues musician. And I'll always kick myself because he's since passed away. He had come through Oklahoma City touring multiple times, and I just always missed him. And I'd always told myself, oh, well, he's always touring. I'll catch him next time. And when I finally got a ticket to him, the concert got canceled because there was an ice storm, and his people were like, it's not worth the risk for Mr. King to drive to Oklahoma City right now. And I had to get reimbursed for my tickets. And like, I kid you not, 4 months later, he passed away.
Wow.
Yeah, it sucked. One of my favorite musicians. But yeah, like, I love the blues so freaking much. But like you, I kind of like it in batches. So I can go back and listen to a variety of musicians, but it's not the type of thing that I want to listen to like all the time, right? But I listen to it, and it's sort of like on an intellectual, emotional, instinctual level, I can connect it to the Allman Brothers, to Cream, to Creedence, to Zeppelin,
Oof.
all these other
Everywhere.
bands that I love, and it's like I feel like I'm feeling that historic connection when I listen to it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, you can hear the blues in Tony Iommi, you know.
Oh, absolutely,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah. If you don't think you're not hearing the blues in Black Sabbath and the almighty rock god that is Tony
Especially
Iommi.
those first two albums.
Yeah, oh my god, that down tune.
Blues and jazz are all over the first two Sabbath albums.
Especially Bill Ward's drumming.
Yes, yes.
Especially the dun,
If you listen to Fairies Wear Boots,
yeah.
that is a fucking jazz drum beat.
Right.
Absolutely, no questions asked.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
And I mean, the blues, for me, the blues is like, you know, I always feel like I listen to the blues when I listen to those deep cup artists, you know, just, you know, fiddling through like, you know, Amazon Music and stuff. If you listen to this, you'll like this. And it's kind of like I'm in like, you know, algebra 1, but like the blues is like on the Mensa level. You know what I'm saying? And I'm like,
I don't know about Mensa, but yes.
Yeah, I
get
almost
it. I get it.
like I'm out of my league, but at the same time, that batch of blues that I'm kind of experimenting with is just so calming. It's so telling. And
Absolutely.
you know, and it's like you hear, you know, Dimebag and Eddie Van Halen and Tony Iommi. You hear all these people. You hear all these drummers. You hear Peter Criss and all this other stuff, and you're like, oh, I think I'm starting to get it. Well, let me listen to Temple of the Dog record for the.
Because once you make that connection to the blues,
yeah,
and you understand the blues and understand how it informs rock,
yeah,
you start hearing blues everywhere when you listen to it.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Yeah, easily.
Absolutely. All right. We are on the final round, round 6. Round 6, bottoms up.
There you go.
What you got for me, Mike?
Oh, all right. So you got the big 4 of thrash.
Okay. Negative thrash. Okay.
Nope.
Let me crack my knuckles and pop my neck.
If you got to stretch your hamstrings, your quads, whatever. So you got your big 4 of thrash.
You're talking my language when you talk thrash.
So we got the big 4 thrash, right?
Okay.
Now, talk the big 4 of grunge. Pearl Jam, Nirvana, Soundgarden, Alice in Chains.
Okay.
So now you have the big 4 of thrash, big 4 of grunge. Which of the 4 has been most influential in music?
When you say, okay, let me get a clarifier. When you say music, rock in general?
We'll say in general.
Okay, then it's got to be the grunge side.
Really?
Yep. The big 4 in thrash are incredibly relevant in metal.
Yes.
And I mean, look, we could do a whole nother one of these on heavy metal, and perhaps someday we will. But when it comes to the rock evolution, Pearl Jam, Soundgarden, Alice in Chains, and Nirvana were inheritors of Creedence, Neil Young, so many other great bands from the late 60s, early 70s.
Yeah.
Right? But they put what was then a modern spin on it. And they took rock and completely changed what it was. Like, right? Because before Nirvana, before Nevermind, rock was hair metal. It was Motley Crue, it was Poison, it was Warrant, it was Rat,
Def Leppard, all that good stuff.
Def Leppard, absolutely. And you know what? screw it. All due respect. It's not my thing. I know you dig on it, and I'm not going to dog it out, but it's not my thing at all.
Yeah, no, I get it, man. Hair metal is a niche. It is a niche. It's very niche.
It took over what rock was for the 80s.
Sure. Victim of the time.
Kip Wingers has the greatest quote of all time with regards to the decline of hair metal.
Yeah.
When he said in I can't remember what it was either. I think Guitar World maybe. But he's like, when I saw the fat pimply kid on Beavis and Butthead wearing a Winger shirt, I knew it was over.
Yeah. Well, it couldn't have been the fact that your hit song was called 17, which was about getting acquainted with a
but there was
continuing on
the conversation. So in a lot of ways, the grunge gods, the big four, plus STP honorary mention,
they're good, man. They're good. That's some good stuff.
Listen,
what?
We have much love for STP, even though they're their first wave grunge imitators. But anyway, they took rock ostensibly back to the garage,
mm-hmm.
and made it raw again, made it real, made it tangible, made it something that connected with the kids in a more meaningful way than the spandex and hairspray that had come to and mascara that had come to define rock by the late 80s was doing anymore. And so in that regard, it's crucial to the evolution of rock.
Yeah, for sure.
And I say that every bit as much as the early 2000s, like with the White Stripes or the Strokes, those type of bands were kind of a rebuttal to what post-grunge had become in the latter half of the 90s post-Cobain.
Okay.
And you've always got this sort of rebuttal, like, okay, here's what's popular, and here's the antithesis of that.
Yeah.
Right? Like punk was the antithesis of quote unquote dad rock or prog rock, as we would call it. Rush, Pink Floyd, etc.
Yeah.
So it goes. So grunge, as a natural evolution of that back and forth conversation that rock has with itself periodically about once every 10 years, is unequivocally more important to rock as a whole, as a movement, as a decade by decade historical document of music in America, than the big four in thrash. Because thrash is part of metal, and metal is a subgenre of rock. So if you're looking at it from an anthropological perspective like that, then metal kind of takes second place, even third place, in the grand scheme of things to the evolution of rock.
Now, would you say that grunge did to hair metal what rock did to disco?
No, I don't think that's a fair comparison, because disco was an outgrowth of funk.
Okay.
And it's its own thing. I don't think that comparison holds up.
Okay, that's fair. Because I mean, to me, it seemed like, and it was kind of funny because at the height, because we moved to Southeast Missouri in.
I'm so sorry.
Oh man, you know, if it wasn't for the people
Missouri is beautiful, but that's about it.
What's that?
Missouri is beautiful scenery.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's about it.
And I tell you what, I still talk to some cats that I went to high school with, and I did get to meet and interact with some good souls.
Sure.
Yeah. But I remember, you know, at the heart of grunge when it was cool to listen to stuff like Janis Joplin and the Doors and stuff like that. And by the time I moved to Southeast Missouri, I had already I was deep into Big Brother and the Holding Company and Pearl Jam and all that stuff. So all this stuff was new, you know, Jimi Hendrix. And so by the time we got to Southeast Missouri, it was like, have you heard, you know, about Pearl Jam and do you listen to the Doors? I'm going, who doesn't listen to the Doors? Like who, like really? So like, oh, excuse me. Like for me, so like that whole grunge movement kind of almost felt like that next wave of, well, you know, you had the rock and then you had the disco and then rock that, excuse me, that late 70s, you know, rock invasion kind of wiped out and kind of killed disco. You know, I almost feel like, because it's like,
are you talking about new wave?
Well, no, I'm talking when grunge kind of fell in, when it was cool to listen to like, you know, Dinosaur Jr. and
okay, so the alternative precursor to grunge,
right?
Gotcha.
And so I'm sitting here going, like,
correct me if I'm wrong, because you're the Dinosaur Jr. expert.
Yeah,
they existed prior to right to grunge's ascendance in 1991, right?
Yeah, they much like the Melvins, definitely celebrated, you know, Kurt and Eddie and Chris and all those cats kind of pushing, you know, that music, you know, or you know, the style, you know, because correct me if I'm wrong, and if anyone who is watching, we got a show one person watching or whoever is going to listen to this, correct me if I'm wrong. I believe Sonic Youth was the one of those first like underground.
Yeah, Sonic Youth and Dinosaur Jr. were right about the same time in the late 80s.
I want to say Sonic Youth was the first underground, you know, grungy type of band. And I don't even consider grunge. Yeah, Sonic Youth isn't grunge by any stretch of the means, but we'll say indie bands that were indie to sign a major record label, and it kind of, you know, the dominoes kind of fell after that. But I don't know, it's I always feel like, you know, that wave of grunge and indie signings, you know, it was a weird time because it almost kind of killed, I don't want to say killed, but it almost like negated like 120 minutes all of a sudden was the cool show to watch on MTV. And it was like, you know, everyone was buying.
No. They killed glam. Absolutely.
They really did.
Winger became a punchline on the fat kid on Beavis and Butthead's shirt, right?
But the thing
Motley Crue made an album in '95 trying desperately, sadly, to be alternative.
Like, John Corabi joined Motley Crue. Yeah, I'm telling you, man.
You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, and I mean,
slash the Snake Pit.
Yeah, you have Snake
Pit. Holy crap!
Like, what was it? What's Poison's like Native Tongue?
Yes,
Native Tongue, like when
all those glam guys tried so freaking hard to jump on that train. And
the classic, I mean, this article sticks out to me, like, I mean, to this day, like the band Collective Soul, when they came out, they were literally the lead singer, after the band disbanded and stuff, came out and said that like Capitol Records literally had like their wardrobe for them. So for their
Really?
right, so their
That's
videos,
gross.
right, so their videos, like all the flannel and shit that they wore, it was wardrobe. Every time they went on,
That's so
like,
gross.
right, so they went on David Letterman, they would make sure like wardrobe had like holy jeans and Doc Martens or Birkenstocks and
Ah,
fucking shit. You know, I mean,
makes me feel dirty, man.
yeah, I mean, I love Birkenstocks just as much as the next person, but
Who doesn't?
right, but don't make like wardrobe come and give you a fucking wardrobe so you can look like Mike McCready, you know?
Listen, Mike McCready, respect.
Right. One love, but it's like shit, you know? But yeah, to me, I always think of grunge. They always say, "Oh, it killed glam." Well, glam wasn't all that strong. If you want to talk about a niche audience, let's talk about the Aquanet kids there for a second. I mean, you can only have Brett Michaels saying talk dirty to me so many times before you're just like,
me.
you're like, dude, listen, I love the song, and CeCe DeVille is an excellent guitarist for the decade, but shit,
Get your life together, dude.
something, right? Are
Stop being corporate whores. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. We're round 6, final question.
This is it. At an hour.
All right, I'm gonna go deep.
Let's go.
Who is the most overrated band of all time in Mike Aiken's opinion?
The most overrated band, like of any genre?
Rock, across the spectrum of rock.
Let's see here. Does it have to be a band or could it be a solo artist?
It can be a solo artist.
Billy Joel.
That barely counts as rock.
Okay. Not going to take Billy Joel, huh?
I'm not going to accept Billy Joel because that is... No.
That's a tough one, bro.
I have a hard time accepting Billy Joel as rock in the same way that I have a hard time accepting James Taylor as rock. Like, look, both dudes, very talented.
Yes.
Is it rock? Wuss rock, maybe. In the parlance of Bart Simpson.
Metallica.
Oh, what?
Yeah.
You just hurt my soul, man.
Yeah, if we're gonna stick to rock, it's gonna be Metallica.
Whoa.
Yeah,
Whoa.
And I will
start. Bro.
No. I will say this. I absolutely respect one of my favorite genres is the hardcore stuff.
Yeah.
And I get that, very few bands in that genre make it past a couple of years because it's a tough life because you're in vans. You're
living in a van.
Right. So, your maximum venue is probably a 1 to 200 people, so bands like Terror and Madball and Agnostic Front and stuff like that, very few bands get to reach that 20 plus year pinnacle playing in such a niche genre. But when you got a band like Metallica, who I understand the not wanting to live in a van anymore, right? And wanting to kind of when the man is flashing millions upon millions upon millions, and I will never discredit anyone getting paid. Okay.
Oh, hell no. Get your money.
Right. And so I get it. So when Metallica became the Lars Ulrich show on the Black Album, And it's kind of funny because we were talking about this a few weeks ago, maybe a couple months ago, about their box set, Live Shit Binge and Purge, about the year and a half, the documentary, which is on the Coda app, which is I think it's a Prime channel. But they have that's the app that I keep talking about, where they have like all these concerts and documentaries and shit like that.
Nice. I did not know that.
Yeah, it's pretty dope. I think it's only like $5-6 a month. Yeah, it's really it's a dope channel. I've had it for. I only originally bought it because they have a Halloween show from a few years ago from Widespread Panic.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and from New Orleans. And so I bought it. I did the 7-day free trial just for that specific show. And so I started looking around, and they have like everything from rock to jam band to pop. I mean, they really have a pretty decent selection of shit to get into. So anyway, so before this show, they decided they had put on a year and a half, The Life of Metallica, that we were talking about a few weeks ago. So I was watching that, and as I said previously, if you look through that documentary, you get the sense that Jason Newsted really isn't a part of the band. He's just kind of like
that's well documented at this point.
Right, like a dude, right. And we know. I mean,
he's almost like a hired hand.
Right.
It sucks for him.
Right. And which was really shitty because
you're called up to the big leagues.
Right. And especially
in Metallica in 1986, 87. I mean, there's fewer bigger bands out there. Right. Of course you're going to say yes.
Right. Well, and they got to remember, they just came off that tour with Ozzy Osbourne for Master. So it's like, what are you going to do? Of course you're going to leave. Are you going to not say
the same with Flotsam and Jetsam?
Right? Like, who the fuck is Flotsam and Jetsam? No one gives a shit. So I was just kind of like, maybe Metallica after And Justice for All is severely overrated.
I like the Black Album.
Don't get me wrong. I too like the Black Album. I think we can take a couple of songs off the Black Album.
I'll kindly take In Nothing Else Matters off the Black Album. There's personal reasons there, but go on.
Sure. I'm not a really huge fan of And Nothing Else Matters, but songs like Sad But True, I think it's a clunky song. I think that record. I think most of that.
I think Bob Rock took over that band.
Yeah, which is fine, and I don't
stick to producing John Cougar Mellencamp albums.
Okay, first of all, John Cougar Mellencamp is a goddamn national treasure, sir. And I will.
That's what I'm saying. Don't try to turn Metallica into Mellencamp.
Okay, Metallica would be lucky to turn into John Mellencamp, sir. John Mellencamp, John Cougar Mellencamp, John Cougar. Yeah.
But
anyway, but no, I think Metallica. Anything really after Metallica and Justice for All, I'm not trying to discredit them. I'm not trying to say that they sold out or they're just horrible. I'm just like, they're kind of like, at this point now, I kind of consider Metallica like the almighty Kiss. They're hanging on to something that
you love Kiss.
I do love Kiss, but Kiss should have hung it up about 10, 12 years ago and retired into the hills of Beverly Hills and been done with all
10, 12 years ago, maybe 30 years ago, 35?
I won't hear 30, sir. I will hear 15, but I won't hear 30.
You're the one that was telling me that anything are you going to tell me you love Carnival of Souls?
No,
Circus.
Okay, whoa. Per our conversation a few weeks ago, I said Psycho Circus and Sonic Boom were the only two of the modern era that could be post revenge.
All right, I'm trusting you.
But no, I think band, and like I said, I just honestly I think Metallica is just one of those bands, and in my personal opinion, and I'm not saying this as a negative way. I just think Metallica could have hung it up a few years ago, and been fine.
I think if any band were smaller than Metallica, they would have hung it up years ago.
Is Metallica still that big in America?
Oh, dude, they can sell out some freaking stadiums.
In America, though? I mean,
yeah, absolutely.
They can sell out, in Schrumpfel's Columbia.
Dude, they can totally sell out some stadiums and arenas.
In America?
Absolutely.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely. Interesting. So that's the end. Look, I have 6-packed my empty cans. That's the end of 6 rounds. We have officially gone almost twice as long as we normally do.
We knew this would happen. I told you this.
Also, Mike, because we loved music and rock and we love to talk about it.
We do.
And
we'll have to do this next week.
We'll have to do it again. I don't know about next week. I don't know if
you're going to ask your liver for permission to do it next week.
I typically don't drink this much anymore, but
at least on a Wednesday.
Definitely not on a Wednesday. But no, this has been great. Next week, I think we're probably going to talk about Neil Adams and George Perez.
We should. We
definitely should. Because in the midst of all this alcohol and rock, we forgot this was a comic book podcast. And so it goes, right? But we want to try something new. And it's something we've been kicking around for a while. So I hope that anyone listening enjoyed this weird little segue. And next week we're going to talk about the one and only Neil Adams and George Perez, who tragically died just a little over a week apart from one another, and what their legacies mean to the industry and all that great stuff. So until then, I would normally say support your local comic store, and in spirit, I still mean that. But this time, I'm going to say support your local record shop.
Oh, hey.
Yeah, in the spirit of the episode. So do that. Listen to some good tunes. Read some good comics. Love your brother like your neighbor. And drink beer. All right. Until next time.